The thing you think of as chocolate does not really exist. The object was invented in 1847. Before that year, chocolate had been exclusively a drink for approximately 5,000 years. The sweet, solid, milky bar in your desk drawer or your kitchen cabinet is not ancient. It is younger than the American Civil War. What came before it? Something you would not recognize. Bitter, spiced, cold. Served in golden cups at the Aztec imperial court and valued by some measures more than gold itself. Used as money. Given to human sacrifice victims before they died. Drunk by an emperor who consumed 50 cups of it every single day. That is the actual history of chocolate. And the distance between that history and the bar in your hand is one of the stranger journeys any food has ever made. The original drink. The earliest confirmed evidence of chocolate consumption comes from the Olmec civilization in what is now southern Mexico, roughly 3,500 years ago. The word cacao itself derives from the Olmec language. The Maya refined what the Olmecs started. Maya people ground cacao beans into a paste, mixed it with water, chili peppers, and vanilla, and created a drink they poured back and forth between cups to build a thick froth on top. The froth was considered the most valuable part of the cup. No sugar, no milk, no sweetness at all. If you drank a cup of authentic Maya chocolate today, your most likely reaction would be confusion, followed by genuine displeasure. It tasted like bitter coffee mixed with black pepper and chili. That was not a flaw. The Maya were not trying to make something pleasant. They were making something powerful. The cacao drink featured in religious ceremonies, given to warriors before battle, exchanged between bride and groom during wedding rituals. It held the same cultural role that wine holds in other traditions. Sacred, reserved, meaningful. The tree that produces cacao grows only within 20 degrees of the equator. When the botanist Carl Linnaeus classified it in the 18th century, he named it Theobroma cacao. Theobroma is Greek for food of the gods. He did not choose that name as marketing. He chose it because that is what every civilization that cultivated cacao had understood it to be for thousands of years before he ever saw one. Money that grew on trees. The Aztecs did not discover cacao. They conquered the people who had it. The Aztec Empire's capital, Tenochtitlan, stood at an altitude where cacao trees could not grow. The Aztecs conquered the lowland regions where cacao flourished and extracted it as tribute, the way other empires extracted gold or grain. A colonial document from 1545, recorded by Spanish administrators trying to map the economy they had just destroyed, preserves the exact prices. 1 large tomato, 1 cacao bean. A tamale, 1 bean. A small rabbit, 30 beans. A turkey hen, 100 beans. A reasonably healthy slave, 100 beans. Cacao beans were money, used as small denomination currency across the entire empire. They were stored in 8,000 bean pouches, carried hundreds of miles by professional porters, and counterfeited by people who hollowed out the shells and refilled them with clay or amaranth dough. Fake cacao was the ancient equivalent of counterfeit bills. At the top of this system sat the emperor. Montezuma II reportedly drank 50 cups of chocolate per day from golden cups, believing it gave him strength and power. His personal cacao stockpile reportedly exceeded 960 million beans. Spending 50 cups of his own currency on himself daily was something historians have compared to lighting cigars with paper money. It was a public performance of power, not just thirst. When Hernán Cortés arrived in 1519, he walked into one of the most sophisticated monetary systems in the world and failed to grasp it. He was looking for gold. The Aztecs had something worth considerably more in terms of daily economic function, and it was growing on trees in the provinces. Columbus's son Ferdinand recorded that when the Maya accidentally dropped some cacao beans on the ground during a transaction, every single person present stopped to pick them up, as if someone had dropped an eye. Spain's 100-year secret. Cortés and his soldiers tried the chocolate drink and hated it. One Spanish account from the period described it as a drink more fit for pigs than for people. The Aztecs had spent centuries developing a taste that Europeans, encountering it for the first time without preparation, found deeply unpleasant, bitter, cold, thick, and spiced with chili. But Cortés noticed that every person who mattered in the Aztec world consumed it constantly. He brought cacao back to Spain. What the Spanish did next was add sugar. Sugar had been arriving in Spain from Caribbean plantations. When someone in the Spanish court mixed sweetener into warm cacao and served the result hot, the reaction was immediate. The bitter warrior drink became something else entirely. Rich, warm, sweet. Spain kept this modification secret for almost 100 years. Wealthy Spaniards gathered at chocolate houses to drink it socially, and the preparation stayed largely out of reach for the rest of Europe through the late 1500s. The secret cracked open in the early 1600s and spread quickly. France acquired it partly through the marriage of the Spanish princess Maria Theresa to King Louis XIV in 1660. England followed shortly after. By the 1670s, London had hundreds of chocolate houses operating alongside coffee houses, serving the drink to anyone who could afford it. Physicians began prescribing chocolate for fatigue, digestive problems, and general weakness. The bitter, sacred drink of Aztec warriors had become a European luxury medicine. Both traditions believed in its power. Neither version was what came next. Making it solid. For approximately 5,000 years, chocolate existed only as a drink. In 1847, a British company called J.S. Fry and Sons in Bristol discovered that mixing cocoa powder, cocoa butter, and sugar in the right proportions produced a paste that could be poured into a mold and set solid. They sold the result as an edible product. The chocolate bar existed for the first time in recorded history. Early versions were gritty and not particularly pleasant to eat. The technology for making them smooth did not yet exist. Customers bought them anyway because the novelty of solid chocolate overcame the texture problem for a while. The texture solution came from an accident. In December of 1879, a 24-year-old Swiss chocolate maker named Rodolphe Lindt accidentally left a mixing machine running over a weekend at his factory in Bayern. When he returned on Monday, the paste inside had changed completely. Smooth, fluid, fragrant. Extended mixing had broken down the fat particles and distributed them evenly through the mass. Lindt named the process conching, after the shell-shaped trough his machine used. He kept it secret for 20 years. Then he sold the process to a competitor for 1.5 million gold francs. Meanwhile, in 1875, a Swiss chocolatier named Daniel Peter had solved the milk problem. Adding fresh milk to chocolate caused it to seize into a gritty, unusable mass because fresh milk contains water and water ruins chocolate chemistry. Peter's neighbor, Henri Nestlé, had developed condensed milk, which removed most of the water content. Peter used it to make the first commercially successful milk chocolate bar. The version of chocolate you actually eat today required all three inventions: Fry's solid form, Peter's milk formula, and Lindt's smooth texture. Between 1847 and 1879, a product that had not existed at the start of that window became essentially recognizable as modern chocolate. Making it cheap. The final step from luxury product to mass commodity happened in America. Milton Hershey attended a chocolate machinery demonstration at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, sold his existing caramel business to fund a factory, and built it in a small Pennsylvania town he eventually renamed after himself. The Hershey bar launched in 1900 at a price accessible to almost anyone. Hershey achieved that price point through a production process that had an unintended chemical consequence. The method he used created butyric acid in the chocolate, which gives it a slightly sour, tangy undertone. Americans raised on Hershey chocolate came to associate that taste with the word chocolate itself. Europeans encountering it for the first time frequently describe it as strange, unpleasant, or like something has gone wrong. Both reactions are accurate. They are eating different formulations and calling them by the same name. There is a detail about modern chocolate that most of the industry prefers not to advertise. The Ivory Coast produces approximately 40% of the world's cacao. Most of the farmers who grow it have never eaten a chocolate bar. The commodity price for raw cacao beans is low enough that smallholder farmers cannot afford the finished product made from what they harvest. The wealth in modern chocolate sits in the processing, the branding, and the retail margin, not in the bean itself. In the Aztec Empire, the bean was the wealth. The person who held it controlled real economic power. Montezuma's 960 million beans were not a stockpile of raw material. They were the money. Today, the person growing the raw material earns the least. The company transforming it into something unrecognizable earns the most. 5,000 years ran from a bitter, sacred drink in Mesoamerican jungle ceremonies to a foil-wrapped bar at a checkout line. Most of what was lost in that journey was the value of the bean itself. Drop a comment on which part of this history surprised you most, and subscribe because the next video follows a food with an equally strange origin.